All right, so we're going to talk about English units. So this part of the notes, we're on page 1 of the 11.1 notes, and I've already included some screenshots from the book of different, of some of the most common English units, and then for area and length and volume, weight and temperature. So let's just talk about, we're going to just jump to area. We're going to talk about inches to feet conversion first. So we know over here in this part of the table, we're told that 12 inches is equal to 1 foot, and most of us know that already because we've used that measurement quite a bit in our lifetime. So if that would be the linear conversion. So if we have 1 foot, we know that's the same thing as 12 inches. So imagine like a ruler. If I want to know how many square inches are in a square foot, so first I'm going to draw what a square foot would look like. So imagine like a square piece of paper that's 1 foot in one direction and 1 foot in the other. So this is what we call 1 square foot. So if I ask you, how many square feet is your classroom, for example, you would try to, estimate how many of these square feet, these squares, would fit on the floor. And if we're wondering how many square inches that is, a lot of times people just think, oh, well, if 12 inches are in 1 square foot, or I'm sorry, if 12 inches are in a foot, then 12 square inches are in a square foot, but it doesn't work that way. So if we think about what a square inch would look like, it's smaller, and it's 1 inch by 1 inch. We have to ask ourselves, well, how many of those square inches would fit in this square foot? Well, if it's 12 inches wide and 12 inches, because that's the same thing as a foot, in either direction, then we'd get 12 of those. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Pretend those are squares. And then we get 12 going down. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we would fill them in. We'd fill in this entire square, and we would get 12 by 12, or 144 square inches. So that's the visual for that. So 144 square inches equals a square foot. Another way to look at it, and if you like algebra, you might like this way better, is take the linear conversion, 12 inches equals 1 foot, and then square both sides, because we know algebra rules tell us that if we have an equation, two sides that are equal, if we do the same thing to both sides, then that's okay. So we're squaring it because 1 foot squared is 1 square foot, and that's what we're wondering about. And then 12 inches squared is 12 times 12, or 12 squared is 144 inches squared. So that's a way to do this conversion without actually drawing a picture. And so we can do the same thing with square feet to square yard. So we can draw the picture if we want, or we can just say there are 3 feet in 1 yard. Okay, and then we can square both sides to figure out the squared measurement. So there, 1 yard squared is 1 square yard, and then 3 squared, or 3 times 3, is 9 square feet. So there are 9 square feet in a square yard. And if we think about what that picture looks like, if it's 1 yard by 1 yard, so that's a square yard, that's the same thing as 3 feet by 3 feet. And if they're 3 feet across and 3 feet down, then they're going to be 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not a great picture. You can just use your imagination and pretend those are all the same size squares. But you get the idea. So there are 9 square feet in 1 square yard. And then let's go down. We'll do the same thing with volume. So if there are 12 inches in 1 foot, then we can go ahead and we can cube both of those. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So 1 cubed is just 1. And then 12 times 12 times 12, or 12 cubed, is 1,728 cubic inches. So 1,728 cubic inches in 1 cubic foot. And the picture of that, if we look at a cubic foot, imagine a box that's a cube. And this box is 1 foot wide by 1 foot deep by 1 foot high. And then those feet we could also think of as 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches, since 1 foot and 12 inches are the same. And then 1 cubic inch is quite a bit smaller, okay? So it's 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, and we're asking ourselves how many of these can fit in there. 1,728 of these are going to fit into a cubic foot. And then lastly, we can do the same thing with feet to yard. So we can write down our conversion. 3 feet equals 1 yard. And then we can go ahead and cube both of those. So 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So we get 27 cubic feet. Oh, bolded that a little too much. And then 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 cubic yard. So we get 27 cubic feet in 1 cubic yard. So that's the conversion there. And then we'll get to weight and temperature a little bit later in further examples. So I just want to do these 2 examples real quick. So we're told down here that 1 gallon is equal to 231 cubic inches. Okay. And so down here, we're trying to figure out, we're asked determine the number of cubic inches in 1 quart. So 1 quart equals how many cubic inches? We don't know. So a lot of times with conversions, it's helpful to write a proportion. There's lots of different ways you can do it. We're going to start by learning this using proportions, and then I'll show you a different strategy called dimensional analysis at the end of the notes, and then you can kind of pick which one you like better. But with proportions, this is what we did in Math 148. We can set up a fraction. So I'm just going to start by setting a fraction up for what I want to know. So I know in the problem we're trying to find 1 quart is how many, so question mark or x cubic inches. We don't know. Okay. What we do know though is that when we set up a proportion, we have to be consistent. So if we decide to put quarts on the top, we'll put cubic inches on the bottom. So let's see if we can find a conversion between cubic inches and quarts. So we know up here, we know 1 gallon is 231 cubic inches, but we don't know how many quarts. So let's go up to our chart right here and we'll look. We know that 1 gallon is the same thing as 4 quarts. So if 1 gallon is the same thing as 4 quarts, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here and I'm just going to change it. Instead of gallon, okay, I'm going to write 4 quarts, because that's the same thing as 1 gallon, is also equal to 231 cubic inches. So now in my proportion down here, quarts and inches cubed, I'm going to write 4 quarts is equal to 231 cubic inches. And then I'm going to solve. So I solve this by using cross multiplication. So I'm going to multiply the numbers across from each other. So 1 times 231. So 1 times 231 equals, and then I'm going to multiply 4 times x. 4 times x. So 231 equals 4x, and then I'm going to solve that by dividing both sides by 4. And 231 divided by 4 gives you 57.75. So our answer is 57.75. Okay. So we can do the same thing for the one below. So 1 cup equals how many cubic inches? So I'm going to set up a fraction and write 1 cup equals x cubic inches. Okay. I know that 231 cubic inches are in 4 quarts. So let's go and see if we can figure out how many cups are in a quart. So we know that, let's see, so it looks like 2 cups are in a pint. So 1 pint equals 2 cups. And then it looks like 2 pints are equals to 1 quart. So if 2 cups are in a pint and 2 pints are in a quart, then that means 4 cups are in 1 quart. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write 4 cups. So notice cups are on the top here. I'm being consistent. And then inches cubed. If instead of 1 quart, we know that 1 quart is the same thing as 57.75. So we already figured that out, cubic inches. Okay, so we've got cubic inches on the bottom, cups on the top, and then we're going to do the same thing we did in the last problem. We're going to cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply those together, and I'm going to multiply those together. So 1 times 57.75 equals 4x. Okay, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So essentially I'm doing 57.75 divided by 4, and I end up getting x equals 14.4375 cubic inches. So my answer I'm just going to write over here is 14.4375 cubic inches.